This podcast, including all discussions and examples, is for informational purposes only and does not constitute professional advice. The views expressed in this podcast are solely those of the host and guests and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of any government agency or company. Today, we're joined by members of the Semper in America's Fund, a nonprofit organization caring for our nation's critically wounded, ill, and injured service members, veterans, and military families. This is From the Dive Shop.
Welcome back to From the Dive Shop. We're coming to you today from San Diego at ADS's Warrior West, and I'm very excited to introduce Sondria Saylor and Davey Lind from Semper and America's Fund. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Thank you for being here. Super excited to meet you. I'd love to hear a little bit about how you work together with the fund.
Okay. Well, I'm a retired Marine Corps Master Sergeant. And in 2007, as a gunnery sergeant in Iraq, I was injured by a roadside bomb, an IED in Iraq. I'm not sure if I said that already. And I became associated with the fund in the days immediately following at my bedside at Bethesda. And I met Sondria when I came to California just a short while later.
So, Sondria, can you tell us a little bit about the fund? What's your mission? What do you guys do? How do you help Marines and other service members like Davey?
Sure. So we have all branches. We're there to support them from the time they arrive at the hospital, and then we're there 5, 10, 15, 20 years later for as long as they need. I think one of the things that makes the fund so special is that relationship that the case managers have with our service members. And it really is just a beautiful thing because it starts at the hospital, but then it goes on for years. And we're there to support them with anything that they need, something as small as gas cards to doctor appointments, but then as big as maybe a handicap van.
Okay, great. Davey, can you talk a little bit more about your experience? If you could tell us a little bit about what led up to your injury. You had a pretty storied Marine Corps career previously. I've heard that you're possibly a little bit famous. I don't know if you could maybe talk a little about that.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm more infamous than famous, but at the time of my injuries, and this is, I own ground that you don't necessarily want to stand on, but I represented in the Marine Corps roles anyhow, one of the most, if not the most severely injured senior rank on the inventory.
Now, let's be fair. When you told me the first time, you said you were the most blown up Marine, I believe, at the time.
Yes, definitely the most severely blown up Marine in the inventory, and I've carried that with me, and I'll argue with anybody that wants to take it to that level. But it's important to know that I was an E7, a gunnery sergeant in the Marine Corps, Master Sergeant Selectee, and so there are, sadly, Marines that are so much more injured than I am, but they're a younger rank. And there are maybe one other leg amputee that was a sergeant major that I'm aware of. But to the best of my knowledge, a double leg amputee, master sergeant selectee, I represent the most severely blown up guy in the inventory.
So obviously we laughed at that because it's a funny name, but
Right.
Clearly not a funny thing. It's a pretty serious story. Can you talk a little bit about just what your recovery looked like, and ultimately how did you come to work with the fund?
Sure. So I was injured June 14, 2007. As I said a couple times now, I was a master sergeant selectee. I was medevac back to the United States, planes, trains, automobiles, and was in Bethesda, and was told at that time that it's going to take me about 10 months to a year to walk. And as a recon master sergeant, recon gunny, I'd done the exciting, I had a very robust machismo masculine job. And so the thought of being unable to get myself around just didn't even make sense to me. So immediately I set that goal that I was going to walk to my promotion that I figured was about 6 months away. So they gave me 10 months to a year, and I said, you know what, I'm going to walk to my promotion in 6 months.
And
that was the goal.
What did your doctors and therapists say to you about that?
They looked at me and, were like, you're crazy, but yeah, let's see. And it was almost sure, go ahead, kid. We know what we got you. We've heard this before. And then it even got worse because I left Bethesda and I came to California. And when I came to California, I was met by about 25 of my friends. And one of my good friends was getting married. And my wife at the time was already in their wedding. And they came to me and they said, hey, we want you to be in our wedding ceremony. And their perception of what they wanted was almost embarrassing. They were trying to be honorable, but it was something I didn't want. They wanted me to wear my blues. At this point, I'm in a wheelchair, confined to a wheelchair. And so they wanted me to wear my blues and get pushed down the aisle. And as soon as they said that, the vision I had was, the Born on the 4th of July, a spectacle, a look at me, a woe is me kind of thing. And we argued for that night, and I left that with like, no, I'm not doing it. And they were adamant, like, we want this, we'll make it happen. So I remember the weekend, it was July 30th, and it was Comic-Con weekend, and it was just like a very unique time. And I went to Balboa Hospital here in San Diego, went to a brand new facility, met my new physical therapist, my new orthopedic surgeon, my new rec therapist. I met all these guys. And when you're in a wheelchair, the analogy I would give you, anybody that's ever had the misfortune to be there, it is much like the kids' table at Thanksgiving. You have, everybody's talking about you, but nobody's talking to you. So this is what he has, this is what he's going to get. I'm a gunny at this point, so I'm getting respect. They're not being disrespectful, but everybody's standing and I'm sitting in this circle as these people are talking about me. And they're like, they come up with their plan, and this is what his legs are going to look like, and we'll do this, and okay, let's go. And they all kind of did like the proverbial break the huddle clap and started to walk away. And I was like, hey, hang on a second, guys. And they all turn around and they're like, oh, that's right, we're talking to a gunny. I'm like, hey, listen, I got a request. I need to know, can we do this? And they're like, yeah, what is it? I said, hey, my friend is getting married. They want me in a wedding. I need to walk down the aisle. And they're like, okay, when's the wedding? I said, it's about 3 weeks. And he go, well, I'll tell you what. You do the work, we'll make the legs. We'll see if we get there. So I was injured June 14, 2007, told I wouldn't walk till December, and I started walking August 14th, 2007, 2 months of the date. Now, the joy of that is I proved them all wrong. But the better part is Bridezilla, I took just the smallest bit of her thunder, and that I'm still friends with her, and now she's a family member. And it is the funniest thing, because when that story comes up, she's like, how are you going to go down and on my day steal? Because nobody knew I could walk. I didn't tell anybody. So when they opened the door for the wedding party to come in, and I come down, I was walking with a cane, but I'm in my blues. Nobody had an idea.
Oh, wow.
So that was my day of stealing their thunder.
Wow. I have chills. Thank you for sharing that.
Not happy to do it, but that Sondria and I became associated during that time as of my physical therapy and things like that.
So talk to me about your experience with Davey during that time. You sound like someone who doesn't back down, and I mean the effort and the energy and pain that must have gone into being able to walk at that wedding.
No isn't real. No is a suggestion. It's not really an answer. Is kind of what I would go with. I don't really like the color inside the lines all the time. So, but I want to touch on the relationship that I have with Sondria, because you can tell I talk way more than she does, and she lets me do it, and I'm happy for that.
That's why I want to hear her first impression.
No, he's better at it than I am.
Oh, no, I want to hear it. Come on, Sondria from the fund. Give me your first impression.
Well, I can tell you the first time we met was 2007. So he had come back to San Diego, to Balboa, and after he'd been on the East Coast, I believe. Mm-hmm. And that was the first time I met him. So he was very newly injured, and he just needed some things when he got home. So that's how we met. And I don't know how you found out about us, actually.
So the fun came to, I say two things all the time. The fun came, I talk about that 2 months that it took me to walk, but I was able to do that because the representatives from the fund on the East Coast came to the bedside, and the very first thing they did is they took care of every worldly bill I could imagine. So, cable, electric, all that kind of stuff. My wife was able to come and be by my bedside. My children were able to come see me. That time was crucial because, and obviously it chokes me up now, but it's crucial because by most measures of success today, I would be considered successful. And the reason why is because at that very pivotal time, I was not alone. I focused exclusively on recovery and getting better. So I had no distractions thanks to the fund. That's very important. I'm successful today, I know, because I had a strong foundation to build my future endeavors on. And right away, the thing that's so impressive that holds true today, 20 years later, this summer I'll recognize 18 years of injury, but 20 years later for the fund, 18 years for me, is the relationship is, it represents the longest relationship I've ever had. I mean that. And then I'll say my favorite story of the fund that I've told before is during that recovery process, I had a day where I was in California. I lived in Oceanside, right outside the back gate of Camp Pendleton. And what did I want to do on a Saturday? I wanted to go home and sit on my couch and watch TV. And we lived in an older condo complex. And we went home and pulled up into the parking lot. And my wife pulled the wheelchair out, and I transferred from the car to the wheelchair. And guess what? It was not wheelchair accessible. There was no ramp. So I'm 30 feet from my front door, and it might as well have been across the country. So climbed out of the wheelchair, crawled across my front lawn, crawled into the couch. All the emotions you could imagine. 70 days before that, I was jumping out of airplanes. Now I'm crawling to my couch. Like the emotional train wreck that's internalized. And this story would be great if I exaggerated, but I won't exaggerate. Later on that day, on a Saturday, in the middle of summer, my case manager, Sondria Saylor, calls me and says, "Hey, Davey, what's going on? How you doing?" And I said, "Man, am I going through it? I'm home on the couch, but this just happened." And at this point, it was almost tongue-in-cheek, like I'm here on my couch. I don't request anything. I don't say anything. I just say what I'm going through. And I like this story because it shows that what they do is not all grants and all using people I don't know, and I think probably breaking knuckles or whatever, and volunteers in Oceanside. They worked with a contractor who built a not up to code, not legal, but accessible wheelchair ramp in the parking lot out of plywood and presswood. So the next time I came home, guess what? I wheeled right up into my front room. And there's no exaggeration, 100% there. Worked with the homeowners association, volunteer contractors, and got it done for a song. Solved the problem. So
I think it's something that people don't think about. You go through this catastrophic event, right? This tragic event, and people think about the medical piece of it and the physical therapy and the thing, and not to underplay that at all. But you forget about the fact that while you're going through this terrible event, someone has to pay the bills. Someone has to make sure the lights stay on in your home. Someone has to figure out a way to fly your family across the country. And it sounds like the fund gets that. The fund gets that you have to have those fundamental. The fund has fundamental things. You should probably use that. That you have these fundamental things that need to happen that aren't $1 million endeavors, that are just basically helping you keep your normalcy in place so your family can deal with this huge, tragic, traumatic event. It's amazing. So how long have you been with the fund?
So I've been with the fund since we really started the fund. The beginning days were 2003, and then we became a nonprofit in 2004. So I've been there since 2003.
So you're not just Sondria from the fund. You're Sondria who kind of is the fund. That's amazing.
No, I'm not at all. But I can tell you a little bit about how we started because I think it's kind of interesting. It was 2003. The wounded were coming back, and Karen Gunther was a nurse at Camp Pendleton Hospital, and all of our husbands had deployed at that time, and they were in Iraq. And she just saw the wounded coming back. Medevacs were arriving at all hours in the night. And I think as a country, we just weren't prepared for the wounded that were coming back, a lot of wounded coming back. And so she called a group of us together and she said, hey, this is what's happening. They're coming back and they just need basic necessities. And at that time it was phone cards and just things like that, things you need when you're in the hospital. So we would all chip in and we would take little gift bags down there to meet the medevacs. And then we would sometimes go out to McDonald's and buy cheeseburgers and just so they would have food, when they arrived and things like that. And that was 2003. So that was really the beginning. And then 2004, we became a nonprofit.
That's so amazing. So what were obviously, Davey, your story is incredible. Who are some of the other folks you've helped? What are some other things that you guys have done to just show some of the breadth and depth of what the fund is accomplishing?
Right. Well, that's just one example. We do, I think one of the beautiful things about the fund is that we, just like Davey said, we want service members to focus on their recovery and to not worry about the financial things. So we don't think that a service member should have to worry about, putting in things like that, like making their home handicap modified or purchasing handicap vehicles and things that we can help with. So that's what we're there to do.
Wow, that's incredible. So I assume there's more than just you from the fund.
Yes.
How many case managers or volunteers? How big is the fund?
Yeah. So the fund is still pretty small. We have a team of case managers that are across the United States, and they're the majority of them are somehow tied to the military. Most are military spouses, so I think that's beautiful too because they get the military, they understand. A lot of them have their spouses are wounded, and so they understand that too. And they're just amazing because they have those relationships, just like the relationship that we have with the service members and with the family members. I mean, the case managers get invited to weddings and to baptismals and things like that. So it's just really, it's a special relationship. And I think that's what sets us apart is because we have those relationships with the service members and families.
Davey, can you speak a little bit about what that has meant to you over the years?
Yeah. I think with all the different things that I've seen and been exposed to, all the different organizations out there, I feel like there's skepticism for anybody that hears because it sounds just a little bit too good to be true.
Sure.
I don't know how to say it any other way other than for the last 18 years, every milestone that I've come to in my personal or professional life, Sondria has been, if not the first phone call, she's been within, maybe my dad first. But for the vast majority of things, from pregnancy to birth to divorce to new relationship to whatever my life might look like, I think she was the third person to know that I was engaged, and then was one of the first people to know when I got remarried. And that's just a relationship that I can't imagine being replicated anywhere else. And it takes 18 years to get there, but nothing has changed. So much has changed, but nothing has changed at the same time. So it's a very unique, great relationship, and it's at the point that I often won't reach out on a weekend because I know she'll answer, or if it's like this is a holiday weekend, I'm not gonna, and it's just it's so special, but it's also very important to know that it's honest as advertised. I know the fund still operates at an incredibly low overhead. That's incredibly unique. The rapid turnaround and from the time. And she'll correct me if I'm wrong because I want to be accurate with this, but from the time that they're aware of an issue to the time that somebody has contacted you is like 48 to 72 hours. Wow. And that's continued throughout. That's a great, let's get us started, but that's so hard to maintain. But they're able to maintain that because of their drive, the purity of their heart and the way that they approach it.
So that's a question I have, Sondria. How do you scale that? Because obviously, Sondria from the fund, you're doing something very unique. And my assumption is Davey's not the only person you've helped. That would be a very small fund.
Yes.
So how are you guys scaling that? How do you replicate what you're doing on a larger scale? Mm-hmm.
So we've helped over 34,000 service members and family members, which is amazing. We have a small team, but a mighty team. And honestly, they're just going over and above every single day. All the staff that work for the fund, it's just amazing. And then we also have a team of volunteers too that help us a lot.
So we keep calling it the fund. For anyone that's interested in volunteering, donating, it's Semper Fi and America's Fund. And we're going to say that a bunch more times because I think it's important enough that we want to make sure that that doesn't get lost. But Semper Fi and America's Fund is shockingly hard to say. So we're going to go with the fund for the next little bit. Davey, what are you doing now? What's your life like now?
I work for the government. I'm my voice cracked right there. That didn't sound very masculine. I work for the government. I'm an operations manager. I work for Army Research Laboratory West located in LA. And I do that with passion. But my favorite thing in the world is when I'm not speaking for the fund, my favorite thing is I golf for Mr. Bob Parsons and the PXG Hero Squad. I'm one of his Hero Squad members located around, and that's a very symbiotic relationship with the fund, and so I enjoy speaking for and representing both. So
fantastic. So how do you now engage with the fund? Obviously, you are a beneficiary, I guess, for lack of a better word. You've been involved from that standpoint. How are you continuing to carry the message? What do you do? Do you have folks that you stay involved with to help further the fund? What are you doing with them now?
Yeah, so my favorite thing, and we didn't talk about this beforehand. My favorite thing to do is to be out and represent the fund when called. And I like golf. Not a lot of, there's few and far between that do, but I really enjoy golf. But I will go to golf tournaments when asked, requested. They'll ask for a volunteer. Somebody will want to donate a check to the fund, and they're like, hey, could somebody just come here and talk about what the fund does? I'll be able to do that. But whatever the organization is or whatever the rec therapy is, there'll be something that allows, if you like horses, they'll come and pet horses and talk about the fund. And that's what my service members, brothers and sisters do. My great passion, or the thing I feel most compelled to do, is to be able to talk about what a great organization is, the life lessons of golf, what it gives back, and all that kind of overlapping area is important to me.
So question for you. Most people would believe that the U.S. isn't really fighting a lot of wars right now. Is the fund still busy, for lack of a better term? Are you how are you guys serving now?
Wow, and it's a good question. We get that a lot, and I can tell you we get new cases every single day. And we're not just helping combat injury, but we're helping training accidents. We're helping all branches, as we said, and then we also help service members that have life-threatening illnesses. We have quite a few ALS cases, cancer cases. We help children and spouses of active duty service members that may have a life-threatening illness. So we have quite a few children that are fighting cancer. And really, it's anything that's tied to that need. We're there to help them.
That's great. I'm assuming anyone that's paying attention to this right now is really inspired to help. What's the best way that someone can help out?
Well, I would say if you go to thefund.org, we are always giving back. So if people can donate, we treasure every donation, whether it's small or large. We're always thankful, very grateful for anything that comes in like that, so that we can continue the mission.
Mm-hmm. How about volunteer opportunities? You mentioned to me that you had someone reach out to you about possibly wanting to volunteer. Can you talk about that a little?
Well, what I know about it is that one of the things about the low overhead and low cost is that if it's a regional or it's a local event, and somebody says, "Hey, could you have somebody here?" There'll be the veteran or their spouse or somebody that can go man a booth and talk about things, and that's set up a booth for the day and talk about their experience. And I've done that several times, and I just think it's so important for the awareness, not only that. Because you asked the question or because you stated, because we're a nation at war, whether you wish to believe it or not, we're a nation at war. And so that's very important. So raising that awareness of not only the warriors that are still downrange, but also the mindset that people are coming back with dramatically changed lives. I reap the benefit in this country of the guilt from Vietnam. So the guilt from the way we treated our veterans post-Vietnam, the pendulum has swung the other direction. So I'm recognized almost daily with somebody will thank me for my service. I appreciate you. I do that. But I have very visible injuries. There are many injuries out there that are not as visible, that are not as readily accessible or readily identifiable of what that individual is maybe going through. And, we're talking about the invisible injuries, the PTSD, and all these things are out there, and the fund helps with all of them. So I think it's important just to continue to raise awareness, put it at the forefront of people's minds to know that we're still doing this as the nation at war, and therefore we still must have these injuries and these problems that come from a nation at war.
Well, you beat me to it, because it sounds like everybody already says it, but Davey, thank you for your service and your sacrifice.
Thank you for saying that.
And Sondria, thank you for your service and your sacrifice, because it sounds like you're doing a lot to help with this. So before we close out, if you could say again, what is the website if people want to donate or donate money or give their time? And also, if there are service members out there, what is the best way for them to reach out to the fund to get the help that they may need?
Sure. If you just go to thefund.org.
Thefund.org.
Right, visit our website, and even if you're a service member looking for support or help, it's pretty easy to navigate.
Well, I'm really excited because you are a nonprofit partner for ADS, and I believe we're going to be, all of the proceeds from our 5K at Warrior East will be given to the fund. So I'm excited that we have the opportunity to support you. I hope you guys are coming out for that. If you're not, I will miss you, because we are friends now, Sondria from the fund and Davey. Really appreciate your time today. Please take a look at thefund.org so that you can either give your time, donate your money. As you can see, this is definitely an organization that is aligned with the mission of taking care of soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and just proud as could be to get to be a part of it, and so thankful to meet you both today.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us at From the Dive Shop. We'll see you next time.